December 1944. The wind howled through the Apennine Mountains, a frigid, cruel companion to Feldwebel Walter Jentsch. Snow dusted the rugged peaks of the Serchio Valley, masking the familiar scent of cordite and fear, replacing it with the sterile bite of winter. Jentsch, a veteran paratrooper with the 14th Parachute Regiment, peered through frosted binoculars, his breath pluming in the pre-dawn gloom. Below, American lines stirred. Intelligence reports had described the opposing force in this sector, the U.S. 92nd Infantry Division, with a dismissive air. Colored troops, the briefings had stated, inferring a lack of resolve, a unit best used for logistics, easily broken. Jentsch had heard the propaganda for years, the casual racial slurs, the assurances of Aryan superiority. Yet a gnawing unease prickled at him. The skirmishes over the past weeks, though small, had hinted at something different, something resilient, something defiant. The biting wind and the cold reality of the front line were about to shatter everything he thought he knew. For months, the German High Command had fed its troops a steady diet of racial propaganda. American Negro divisions, intelligence summaries, circulated among the Wehrmacht, often portrayed as inherently inferior, lacking the courage or discipline for sustained combat. This was not just a tactic to boost morale, it was deeply ingrained in Nazi ideology. These units, they believed, would break at the first sign of serious pressure, a notion that shaped their entire strategic outlook for the Italian front. The 14th Army, positioned along the formidable Gothic line, held this perception firmly. Their initial expectation was a slow, grinding attrition, but certainly not a formidable opponent in the segregated units of the American Army. They would soon learn the profound cost of such misjudgment. On December 26, 1944, the Germans unleashed Operation Wintergewitter, Winter Storm. Under the command of General Lieutenant Ludwig Kübler, elements of the German 14th Army, bolstered by tough mountain troops and Italian fascist units, launched a ferocious counteroffensive through the Serchio Valley. Their objective was to smash through the American lines, seize strategic points, and disrupt the entire Allied advance towards Bologna. The initial assault caught elements of the 92nd Division off guard, particularly around the town of Samacolonia, where fierce fighting ensued. German reports, like the entry logged by the 14th Army War Diary on December 27th, proudly noted initial successes, observing the American retreat in some sectors. For a brief, terrifying period, it seemed German dogma would hold true. But the battlefield was about to tell a different, far more brutal story than their intelligence had ever predicted. As Wintergewitter pushed deeper, the German advance, initially swift, began to bog down. The 92nd Infantry Division, despite facing an overwhelming and highly professional enemy, often outnumbered, started to rally. In bitter close-quarters combat, squad by squad, company by company, the Buffalo Soldiers pushed back. The intelligence reports filtering back to German headquarters began to betray a subtle but significant shift in tone. They spoke of unexpected tenacity, aggressive patrolling, and a stubborn refusal to yield ground that defied all preconceived notions. Wehrmacht officers, accustomed to the perceived weakness of African American troops, found themselves confronting a relentless and highly motivated enemy. The myth of the cowardly Negro was being buried under Italian snow. By early January 1945, the German offensive had stalled. The costly fighting had inflicted heavy casualties on both sides, but Kübler's forces had failed to achieve their strategic objectives. The 92nd Division, battered but unbroken, had absorbed the brunt of the assault and then begun to counterattack, pushing the Germans back to their original positions. German war diaries, like a report from a company commander within the 14th Parachute Regiment, began to express not just respect, but a growing dread. They noted the American Schwarz, black, soldiers exhibiting a fierce determination, an unnerving resilience that seemed to defy logic given the propaganda they'd consumed. These were not the broken, disorganized troops they had been promised. These were hardened combatants who fought with a ferocity that chilled German veterans to the bone. Feldwebel Jentsch, huddled in a freezing foxhole, found his own ingrained prejudices eroding with every whistling shell and every desperate firefight. His comrades spoke in hushed tones of the unyielding Negroes, their faces grim with a mixture of awe and fear. An excerpt from a captured German officer's interrogation report, now declassified, paints a stark picture. These black Americans, they fought like devils. We were told they would break, but they just kept coming. Their discipline, their aggression, it was unexpected. The sheer psychological impact of facing an enemy deemed racially inferior, only to find them fighting with such skill and tenacity, shattered the ideological foundations of many German soldiers. It wasn't just a battle, it was a brutal assault on their worldview. The enemy they had so casually dismissed now haunted their dreams, a formidable dark shadow on the battlefield. The Serchio Valley in the winter of 1944-45 became a crucible, not just of combat, but of perception. The men of the 92nd Infantry Division, facing not only a formidable enemy, but also entrenched racial prejudice from both sides of the lines, proved their mettle with blood and valor. Their combat effectiveness forced the Germans to confront a reality that utterly contradicted their deeply held racist beliefs. The initial contempt morphed into confusion, then grudging respect, and finally a profound and undeniable fear of these American soldiers whose bravery defied every piece of propaganda they had been fed. The Black Devils of American lore, a testament to courage and resilience, had carved their legend not just in Allied memory, but in the terrified whispers of their German foes. The Serchio Valley had not just seen a battle, but the shattering of an illusion, a brutal education for an enemy steeped in hate.